Hey guys, my name is Emily, if you haven't seen my face before, and today I'm going to be doing a reading vlog slash review of Colleen Hoover's Ugly Love. I have already read a few Colleen Hoover books that I have made reading vlogs for, so if you guys want to check any of those out, I will leave that playlist in the cards above. The reading vlog portion of this video is going to be spoiler free, but I will come back at the end of the video with a final thoughts wrap up as well as a spoiler section for those of you who have already read Ugly Love or who don't mind being spoiled. I will give you guys a warning when the spoilers are coming up and have spoiler section written across the top of the screen so you guys know to look out for that. Ugly Love is a standalone novel by Colleen Hoover, and it centers around the story of Tate and Miles, who meet under not so good first impressions, but they end up being really interested in each other and try to make an arrangement work within the rules that they set for each other. They end up having a lot of issues with this because of issues that Miles has from his past. So that's all I'm going to say for now. We are going to jump right in to the reading style portion of this video, and I will see you guys back at the end to talk about my overall final thoughts. Alright guys, I'm about to jump into Ugly Love by Colleen Hoover. I still don't know if this is a standalone or if it's in a series. I know nothing about it, so I'm just going to jump in with a completely blank slate. I am up a little bit earlier today, so I have some time before work to get some reading in. I don't know how much I'll finish this morning, but I want to read at least until I have a general idea of what's going on, so I can chat to you guys a little bit about it before I get into the big chunk of this book. So I will see you guys shortly once I know kind of what's going on. Okay guys, I just got to chapter 4. I'm using a little Sephora sample as a bookmark right now because I don't have anything else nearby, and I wanted to make sure I didn't lose my spot. So there we are. I have a general idea now, I think, of what's going on. So our main character's name is Tate. She is 23 and she's just moving in with her brother named Corbin. I don't know why she's moving in with him. I don't know if I missed it or if we're just going to find out later, but she's moving in with her brother, and she ended up meeting one of his neighbors whose name is Miles, who is assumably going to be her love interest. She didn't have a good first impression of him, but she does find him very attractive. So we will see what that is going to lead to. The way the chapters are formatted is that there's one chapter from Tate's perspective from the present timeline. Then the next chapter is Miles' perspective, but it's from 6 years ago. It's his own life and his own stuff that he was dealing with. I wonder if it's going to stay that way for the whole book. I'm not too sure yet. Like I said, I've only read 4 chapters, but I like that kind of perspective where it keeps things interesting because you kind of get attached to what's going on in the present, and then you leave it to go to the past, then you get attached to that, then you go back to the present, you go back and forth. I really like that. I'm going to take a little bit of a break from Ugly Love and get some work done, and then I will come back after I have read a little bit more. Okay guys, I am finished with chapter 8, so I've read a little bit more, still not too much of a chunk in there, but we are trucking along. So right now, Tate is really attracted to Miles. She finds him really interesting and appealing, but at the same time, he's very closed off. He has a really hard exterior kind of personality where he's broody and he doesn't smile and he doesn't laugh, that kind of thing. So she feels like he's probably not the best person to get involved with, but she's developing this attraction for him anyway. This doesn't really seem like it's going to be the my brother's best friend trope, because while Miles is her brother's friend, that doesn't seem to be the key point of conflict or like what's going on in the story. I do think that's probably going to come up at some point, but at least right now it's not that much of a big deal. In the chapters where we see Miles' past, we are seeing him develop a relationship with another woman, and they're kind of opening up to each other. So I think we're going to get a lot of info about Miles via that versus Miles in the present. So I think we're probably going to see what's caused him to be the way that he is while we read about his past, which I like. I do find the past chapters really interesting. I'm actually liking those chapters more than I'm liking the present chapters from Tate's perspective. In most of the Colleen Hoover books that I've read so far, especially the series starters, like the first book in the few series that I have started so far, I've always been initially pulled in the first few chapters, and that isn't really happening with this one. I don't feel attached to the characters yet, and I'm not super interested in finding out what's going on. I'm not disliking it, but I don't think that it's as captivating, at least via the first impression. But I don't think my first impression of this one is as strong as it was for my other ones. I am hoping that it's going to pick up and I'm going to get more attached to the characters once I learn more about Miles' story and I get a little bit more of Tate's personality and that kind of thing. This one might just be a little bit more of a slow burn, which is totally fine. So I am going to keep reading, and I will see you guys after I have read a bit more. Alright guys, I just finished chapter 14. I'm on page 127. So I have made a little bit more of an indent. I'm not quite halfway, but we are getting there. I also forgot to mention how much I love the cover. It's super, super pretty. What's going on right now is that Miles and Tate have made an agreement, which I won't talk too much about in the spoiler-free section. We'll talk about this more in the end of the video. But they have this agreement and Miles has rules for this agreement and they both have agreed to it. And I think the rules are probably going to be broken, at least because in the relationship we see in Miles' past, he also made rules with her and they ended up breaking them. So I feel like it's a little bit of a foreshadowing kind of thing where we might see some parallels between Miles' relationship with this girl in his past and his relationship with Tate in the present. To be honest, I'm actually more interested in the chapters with Miles' past relationship than I am with the current situation with Tate. So I don't know if that's going to change. I hope it does, because obviously Tate and Miles are the main couple and the main couple is not Miles and this other girl, but I am liking their relationship more. So I think one of the reasons for this is because there is still that unknown aspect of like what happened to him in his past that made him the way he is. So I'm really curious to see what's going to go on in his past that kind of made him hurt and closed off. So I'm looking forward to finding that out. Hopefully, as I read a little bit more, I will get more invested in Tate's story, but I guess we will have to wait and see. I'm going to stop here for now and do some work, then I will pick this book up in a bit. So I will see you guys later on when I have read a few more chapters. I am now just finishing up chapter 18, and I am now pretty much halfway, if not exactly halfway, which is pretty cool. So I think I can finish this book today after I'm completely done work, and we will see how that goes. But we just got a reveal about something that happened in his past, from his past perspective, obviously. And it wasn't something that I expected happened, but now that I know that this has happened, I kind of have predictions on how I think it's going to end and what really ended up messing him up and making him very closed off. I definitely have an idea of that now, but we will talk again more about that in our spoiler section. There are definitely a few more connections now from the past to the present. There are things that Miles said to the girl in the past that he's having a hard time saying to Tate now in the present. Just like Colleen Hoover's other books, the title actually has a meaning. It's not just words that are thrown together, and we are starting to see lots of references to ugly love in the chapters that I have just finished, kind of explaining why this book is titled the way that it is. I am still liking Miles' perspective from the past more than Tate's perspective in the present. I do like Tate as a character, but I'm just not really attached to her, and it's kind of funny that I'm more attached to his girlfriend in the past, even though we know, I guess, less about her. I still am only halfway, so there is lots of time for that to change and for me to get more attached to Tate, but as of right now, that's still kind of where I'm sitting. So I'm gonna keep reading. I do feel like I'm now invested, but I'm only invested in the chapters from Miles' past. I'm not invested in Tate's present, unfortunately. I'm gonna read a few more chapters and I will see you guys back in a bit. Alright guys, I just finished chapter 24. I'm definitely a bit more than halfway now, and things are a little bit complicated between Tate and Miles. Tate is basically settling for Miles because she wants to be with him right now, but she doesn't like their agreement anymore. Tate and Miles still aren't together, and there isn't that much of the book left, which makes me think this is a series and we are going to get a second book so that we can go more into their relationship, because I feel like they're not going to have that much time together, considering I am definitely more than halfway through the book. So we will see. I have mixed feelings right now because I really don't like Tate and Miles' relationship. Unfortunately, I am just not into it. I don't like their agreement. I don't like the way that Miles is treating her, and I don't really like many things about it. I am more intrigued still in what's going on in the past. Once I do figure out what happened in the past, I feel like I will have more sympathy for Miles and I'll understand his character better, but I still don't think whatever happened in the past really makes what's happening now make sense, which we will talk definitely more about once we can talk about spoilers. So that's all I'm going to say for now. I'm going to keep reading and see how far I get before I will jump in and give you guys another update. Okay, just finished chapter 32, almost done, and we just got the big reveal of what happened in Miles' past, and this was not what I expected to happen. Whenever things were kind of picking up, I thought it might have taken a little bit of a different turn. I was wrong, but then something else happened, and Wow. So the last chapter, 32, was definitely really emotional. I didn't cry, which I was kind of hoping I would. I think if I was really connected with the characters, I probably would have, because it was definitely a tough thing to read, but it didn't get me. But at the same time, I do definitely feel for Miles and what he went through. I still do not think that this makes his relationship with Tate make sense. I do want to mention that if you are someone who gets triggered by certain things, I would recommend checking out the trigger warnings for this book, because that last chapter definitely had some things that could be very triggering for certain people. I don't want to mention what they are because they are definitely spoilers in terms of what ends up happening, but keep that in mind if you know that there are certain things that you aren't comfortable reading about. The twist also did remind me a little bit of a Colleen Hoover novella that I have done a reading vlog for, and I'm not going to get too much into it because of spoilers for this book and spoilers for that novella, but if you know, you know. I do have about 50 pages left, so I think I'm probably going to do one more update and then just finish the book. So I will see you guys after I have read some more. Chapter 36 is done. I think I have like 2 or 3 chapters left maybe, so I am almost done. I have been sitting here for quite a while, so I am looking forward to doing something other than reading this book. Flashback to 6 years ago is done now. I guess we're just getting his present perspective, and he is confronting his past to move forward with Tate. I'm really curious to see how that's going to go, because he's basically closing the door from his past so that he can move forward with Tate in the future and the present, which I think is good, but I still don't like their relationship, unfortunately. We are going to talk about this a lot in the spoiler section because I just have a lot to say about it. I think this is one of Colleen Hoover's more popular books too, which is a little bit surprising considering I'm not in love with it like I was with some of her other books, but we are going to finish it. We'll see how it goes. Maybe it's going to have a big reveal in the end or something crazy, but if not, I guess my opinion probably won't change that much as of right now. So I will see you guys at the end of this video with my final thoughts. Alright guys, it is now time to talk about my final thoughts for Ugly Love. There is actually a side character who I forgot to mention in the reading portion of this video. His name is Cap for short, and he is an older man who lives in the building with Tate, Corbin, and Miles, who helps with the elevator and people walking in, walking out. He gets to know everyone who lives in the apartment. He was a fun little character that was thrown in there, and I think he's the most important side character, but he still didn't really have his own plot or anything like that. He was basically just helping Tate figure out things. Overall, I feel like this was a pretty quick read. I went through it relatively quickly. It is 324 pages, so it's not a long book by any means, but I went through it pretty quickly. The chapters are not too long, so I really like that when I'm reading books. I did find, like I mentioned before, it wasn't as initially grabbing as some other Colleen Hoover books, which some people might really disagree with me and think this is their favorite Colleen Hoover book, and that's totally fine, but unfortunately that wasn't really my reading experience with it. Like I talked about before, I was not really a fan of the way that Tate and Miles' relationship developed, so I think unfortunately this was probably my least favorite couple out of all of the Colleen Hoover books that I've read so far. That being said though, I did not dislike this book. I found Miles' chapters to be really, really interesting. I flew through those and I loved reading about those parts, so I did really, really enjoy those aspects of the book, but my feelings for the Tate chapters are not as strong. I also wasn't really as invested in the characters as I would have wanted to be because this book didn't make me cry, and I feel like it should have been able to, considering that really emotional scene when you find out what went on with Miles. But overall, I ended up giving this a 3 out of 5 stars. So would I recommend this? I guess if you are trying to read through Colleen Hoover's books, by all means, this is not an unpleasant read. You will still probably enjoy this if you're just looking for a simple romance, but it definitely isn't my favorite. I feel like a lot of other stories are done better, and I wouldn't reread this one, so take with that what you will. Even though the main couple wasn't actually together for the majority of the book, the ending didn't really feel rushed. There was a little bit of a time skip, and then things wrapped up nicely. We did get an epilogue, so you get to see where the characters are in the future, which I really liked. So I was a fan of the ending, and I don't really have any other questions about the characters, so it makes sense that this isn't a series because I feel like their chapter is closed and we know what happens. And I don't think I would necessarily want to read any more about this couple just because, like I said, they aren't my favorite. Alright guys, so that wraps up my non-spoiler thoughts and my review of Ugly Love. If you have not read this book and you don't want to be spoiled, I would recommend clicking out of this video now, For the rest of us, we are going to jump right into the spoiler section. So whenever we first found out that Rachel ended up getting pregnant, my first thought was that she was going to have a miscarriage, and that was going to be this tragic, really painful thing that he and her both went through together, which made him not want to love anyone else, not want to get attached to anyone else. That's what I thought was going to happen, which obviously didn't end up happening. She ended up having the baby, but the baby unfortunately passed away anyways. I really, really liked his relationship with Rachel, and I think why I loved it so much more than his relationship with Tate is the way that he talked about her. He would say things like, everything is Rachel, everywhere I look is Rachel. She is everything. I look away and I think of Rachel. That kind of thing. Like, you could tell how much he loved her. It might have almost been too much because he was almost giving himself to her to the point where she was everything. Even when it was Miles' perspective from the present tense, he was not talking about Tate that way. Like, I love her so much to the point where she's everything. I can't stop loving her, like whatever. It was not the same thing. The way that he would talk about Rachel initially was that he was attracted to her, but his love for her was not based off of that. He had this emotional connection with her. He loved her. He wanted to be with her, all this stuff. Which leads me to his relationship with Tate, which, as we know, I'm not a big fan of. So my issues with their relationship stem from the fact that they were just friends with benefits, pretty much, with no strings attached, and he completely disregarded the fact that he knew she was in love with him and kept saying, we don't have a future, but I'm gonna keep hooking up with you anyways. Like, I just hated that. That felt really gross to me, and I don't like how that was done. It didn't make me dislike his character, but it made me dislike their relationship. To be honest, whenever we got that scene from Rachel's perspective where Miles went to visit her, I was kind of hoping that she would not have moved on and she would have been like, you know what, Miles, I still love you, let's try again. And he would have been like, you know what, Rachel, let's do that. And that is obviously not what happened. He ended up going back to Tate. That was a lot. That almost got me. It almost made me cry. Them talking about how she has moved on and she has a new baby and she was expecting that to just crush her. And I loved the way that she explained how she was scared about having another baby because she was worried she wouldn't feel the same way about that baby that she did about her first. But she did, and that just reaffirmed that she was ready to move on from what she went through and that those sad things would just become parts of her life, not her whole life. I love that. I honestly just really liked Rachel's character. I liked Rachel's character more than I like Tate, again, which I feel like I probably shouldn't feel that way considering Tate is our protagonist, but it is what it is. I feel like I'm being really harsh on this book, but I did still enjoy it, as I've been saying. It's just that the main relationship was just not it for me, and that's totally fine. Everyone has different opinions on books that they read, so hopefully you enjoyed this a lot more than I did. Let me know down below if you guys are Team Tate or Team Rachel, because I'm definitely Team Rachel. I feel like I'm probably in the minority of liking a side character more than I like the protagonist, but I would love to know your guys' thoughts down below. Please make sure, if you are commenting about the book, if there's any spoilers, to put spoiler warning above it, so if anyone else is checking out the comments who haven't read the book, that way they won't be spoiled. But those are kind of my spoilery thoughts and a little bit more detail into why I did not really like Mile and Tate together. So that kind of wraps up my spoiler thoughts. I want to thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you want to, you can go ahead and leave a like, a comment, or subscribe if you want, and I will see you next time. Thanks, guys. Bye. God bless.